Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and we have guests, or we still have a few guests. My name is Charlie Hocker. I'm originally from New York. I want to take you through my life as a youth in New York, a little bit about my young adult life in Texas, and my life here in South Florida. I'm from a small town, Central Islip, on Long Island. It's a small town, I was told, when I was living there, but it was a small town. The population density of the small town was almost 4,000 people per square mile. It's really a very small town considering the number of people that are on Long Island. Long Island is composed of a couple counties in New York City, but also a couple counties that are just part of Long Island. On Long Island alone, there are 7.5 million people. The population density in Miami is less than 2,000 per square mile. So when you think of I'm coming from a small town, it's all relative. My youth, I was involved in a lot of sports. I was in basketball because I was tall when I was 7 years old. I played for some very good Little League teams. We traveled a lot. We traveled into New York City and played in tournaments. And I played in tournaments as a youth as far up as West Point, which is up the Hudson River from New York City. Though I didn't grow very much from the time I was about 11 years old, I still participated in sports. I participated in sports in high school, playing both basketball, soccer, track, and golf. I have 10 varsity letters in my small high school. Though my senior class in high school had almost 400 people, it really wasn't that small. I played sports, but I slowly had to get into education.
Learn this piece.
Because I had so much sports, when I decided I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go to a big city that had a lot of sports. I was used to having New York City close by with sports, all kinds of major activities. But I decided to go to the University of Houston in Houston. Houston had large professional sports, had basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. The University of Houston also had major sports, because I was coming in just out of the year after Elvin Hayes and the greatest basketball game ever played, University of Houston versus UCLA in 1968. So I decided to go to Houston. A lot of people say, why Houston? It's so far, it's so expensive. I went and had a full load of classes for 2 semesters. I lived on campus, so I had a room and board. Okay, all of that was for less than $2,000 a year, not a semester, but a year.
Wow.
I would have had to pay twice as much if I stayed home in New York, ate my mother's food, lived at home, and paid twice as much in tuitions and fees. That includes the cost of flights back and forth from New York to Houston. So it was really very inexpensive. My full load actually was only $200 a year for my classes. So it was very expensive. And I was paying out-of-state tuition. I had never been to Houston before, though. I was dropped off at the airport in New York City in Queens, which is called LaGuardia. 1 suitcase, going to an airport that I'd never been to, a city I'd never been to, had no relatives, no friends going to that city, so I was on my own. A development that my mother did made sure that I was able to stand on my own while I was growing up. I had to take a cab from the airport 30 miles away to the university and get checked in, and was completely on my own. Made friends quickly. It was a very nice place to be, and I lived on campus for all 4 years. Remember, I lived on campus, and I went there for an education, for social interactions, and also for distilled and fermented beverages. Not necessarily in that order. I enjoyed the time there. Houston was a very cheap city, believe it or not. You could see a lot of gas stations, $19.9 a gallon when I first went there. This is 1969. I was able to find beer for $1 a pitcher, which is pretty inexpensive, along with live performers for that same $1. So it was a very cheap town to go to. I moved about 27 years ago to South Florida. I lived first off in the Doral area, about 500-600 feet north of here, in an apartment right on 79th Avenue. At the time, it wasn't Doral. It was just part of the city of Miami-Dade County. The county was still growing. Doral was not even Doral. 41st Street went as far west as 97th Avenue. There was no Publix. There was no grocery store in the area. You had to either go to Miami Springs, or the nearest Publix was over in Coral Way and 87th Avenue. So it was a good distance away to get to anything. I lived here for about 11 years. A lot of people don't know much about Doral. Doral is based upon the Caskell family. They owned the country club. Doris and Alfred Doral. 2003 it became the city of Doral. So it's been Doral for a little while longer than that. I've stayed here for a fairly long time, 27 years. I now live out in Kendall area, but I'm happy to be living in South Florida. Thank you very much.